Hello and welcome to Dorks on Sports, a podcast about four dorks talking about sports. My name is Daniel. Joining me as always is Curtis Eastwood. Curtis, how are you doing over there?
I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, are you?
Yeah.
By a thread.
By a thread.
We got we got some Canadians there in your background.
We do. Well, they're helping out. Out.
All right, good. We got Millie. Millie, how's it going over there?
It's going well, thanks.
Yeah. How's give us the fantasy update.
Well, once again, you win some, you lose some. My poor little Folger team just can't get it together. I mean, if you look at it, it's just a list of players who are out or questionable or
having
IR.
bad seasons.
I mean, it's so bad. And my opponent was actually limping along enough that I had a real chance, but I really messed up last Thursday and I meant to pull Algier, who I knew wasn't going to do much. I meant to pull Algier and put in Brian Robinson. And at like 2 minutes after the game started was when I got out of my car and was able to do it. And it was 2 minutes after the game started.
Oh, it sucks.
And it would have been the difference. So, it's that thing you're just kicking yourself and kicking yourself.
Who's your best player
on that team?
Yeah.
Well, it was Jay Marchese. Now it's Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is my best.
Nick Chubb, he's good. He's good for some fantasy points.
Yeah, no, he had a really bad week though. And I actually made a big old, in my mind, trade today, and I traded away Jay Marchese, and I picked back up Rashad White, who I had drafted. And in this league, you can only do keepers if you drafted them. Mm-hmm. So since my season is just about impossible, I traded Jay Marchese for Rashad White and what's his name, McKenzie in Buffalo. And so I'm limping along. There's still a very small chance. I'm not giving up, but I am setting myself up to keep Rashad White for next year. As a very
it's good for you're just tanking it now. You're just giving it up.
I'm not tanking it. I'm not giving up, but I'm setting
Millie's
myself
looking
up.
for some high draft picks.
I'd be able to get Rashad White as like a 10th rounder. So come on.
Yeah.
And I won my other league roundly.
Kraken just scored another goal.
And
nice.
Won my guillotine league. So things are
which is your guillotine league is like that's your team this season. Like that's the one that's doing well.
Especially after I went out like third last year. I'm feeling real good. And tonight, Derrick Henry, I haven't even looked at how many points he got me, but he threw a touchdown. He ran in a touchdown.
What? I know, they beat the Green Bay, right? I didn't watch the game. I was watching the Kraken game. Every time Aaron Rodgers loses, I'm a happy man.
It just feels right.
It just feels right. It just feels good. Yeah. We got Matt, our friend Matt Slinger, friend of the pod. Alana couldn't make it today, and we brought Matt Slinger on. Matt Slinger had a Germany vacation. We're going to talk about that in a bit. How are you doing over there, Matt?
Oof, I am extremely jet lagged. This is the latest I've been up this week. I've been falling asleep like hard, just hitting the bed hard by like 5 or 6 p.m. and then waking up fully refreshed at midnight and lying in bed for 5 hours waiting for something else to happen. So it's hit me hard, but happy to be back.
You should just pull an all-nighter and then just
reset, hard reboot.
Yeah, just a hard reboot. Yeah. We're gonna talk about your experiences there in Germany in a bit. So the Seahawks go to Germany to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady in the first NFL game in Germany. And they came up short. Started slow, tried to post a comeback, and it just didn't happen. in my mind, the story of that game was the fact that Seahawks couldn't establish a run and the Seahawks couldn't stop the run. And lo and behold, that's how we lost all the other games we've lost. Curtis, is it concerning that we kind of took a step in regression like that, or is this just like a wash? It's a fluky, we go to Germany. It's a young team. We're playing Tom Brady, and let's just water off a duck's back, go into the bye, and we're going to come out strong. What do you think?
I think it's somewhere in between. A little bit. I think they regressed on defense for sure. I spent a little bit of time talking about it on the blog, sort of breaking down some defensive looks that they were throwing out, and it really looked like they were anticipating that Brady was just going to chuck it around a whole bunch, and
which
it sort of started out that way, but
that's not a bad game plan. I mean, going into it, it would the stat lines would be like Tom Brady chucking it, I'm not joking, 52 times, and then they would attempt like 13 runs. So going into that's not a bad game plan.
You're going into it isn't in theory a bad game plan, but what was a bad decision, I think, on the coaches was that they abandoned a lot of what was working really well in that 4-game win stretch by going with a heavier defensive look up front and attacking the gaps. They had Brian Monet inactive in this game, and he has been, a pretty consistent player and a cog for them in rotation with Al Woods at nose tackle. So I felt like they kind of went away from more of the shift into the bare fronts and the 4-3 stuff. And I think they were sort of getting back into more of the looks they were doing earlier in the season when they were hemorrhaging a lot of, yards on the ground against like the Saints and stuff like that, when they were doing more 3-4 type stuff. And so I kind of feel like, credit Todd Bowles, defensive minded coach, sort of recognizing what Seattle was doing, what Clint Hurt was doing with his front, and going like, well, fuck it, we're not going to run
we'll just run it down their throats.
We're just going to run it until they stop getting at it. And so when they started to shift more into heavier stuff, that's when Brady started play actioning and just like chucking it all over the place. So it was sort of like a perfect storm. And I would say that, Seattle's run game, statistically looked pretty bad, but it was suddenly they were in a situation where they were playing from behind and they couldn't really, get the run. Like, I felt like they just sort of had to kind of get away from the run game in the second half and get Geno going, which was actually kind of working for them. It was, they sort of made a run for it, but unfortunately the defense was just kind of, beaten down. And I had heard something to the effect that like the turf was, caught him off guard. And, I think Seattle's defense is really built on speed, and we know the offense is built on speed, and the players weren't really able to take advantage of that. And, Tampa is kind of a bigger, slower team that plays on a natural turf, sort of similar to that. So I really kind of feel like, Tampa was able to just sort of drag Seattle into the mud and force them to play a style,
they're not comfortable. That doesn't benefit them
as successful to do. So I'll just say that, like, I feel like in a way this was sort of a regression with maybe the coaching decisions of Clint Hurt on the defense and stuff, but it's also kind of like maybe not the worst thing to have happen, because now I think they can come out of the bye understanding, what teams are going to likely try and do, which is probably going to, they're not going to throw at, Tariq Woolen. They're going to try and run at these certain fronts. So it's up to Seattle to kind of change that and maybe get back to how they were playing against, the Giants, when, we all thought the Giants were going to, run it up and down the field, and we were able to stop them because we got the heavier looks again. So just go back to that.
honor it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Leonard Fournette has a look like Leonard Fournette, but don't make him look like
Yeah.
stop it,
Yeah.
Yeah. That said, there were some really fun things going on defense. Tariq Woolen got his 5th interception, which breaks the Seahawks rookie record for most interceptions season. And I think he's number 2 overall in the league. That's really exciting. The middle linebacker picked off Brady for Brady's 2nd in the season. Also really, really kind of fun. For the offense, it started off slow, but they really found their ground. I think this was another game where you can, make a case for Geno Smith as MVP. He started out really slow. His stats weren't great in the first half, but he ended it with 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. And I mean, those are 70% completion rate. I mean, those are great numbers.
That was incredible. I'll just add the one other thing is that was an incredible 4th and 1 touchdown throw to Marquise Goodwin. That was an amazing throw and catch play.
I loved that, and I loved the emotion from that moment. I mean, Marquise Goodwin just kind of let out all of the stress and frustration of that game, just right there in the end zone after that catch. But what did you see, Millie? What are some things that the Seahawks can build on from this game? And what are the things that makes you encouraged going forward?
Did I see? I saw Tyler Lockett catch a touchdown and move into 2nd all-time.
For receivers. Yeah, he passed
for
Doug.
Receivers. Yes, receiving touchdowns for the Seahawks. That's pretty awesome. And I'm just always happy when he gets a touchdown. And I mean, I think I saw the same thing. As far as the defense goes, it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch us not be prepared for a possible run game. I was worried a little bit about Fournette, and I can't remember if I actually mentioned it that, after saying he can't carry the whole team at the beginning of the season, he was very upset in the last game and had to be consoled because he said he wasn't getting enough play time. And the last time that happened for him a couple seasons ago, his next game, he went crazy. So there was a little bit of a bad feeling there. They beat us. They beat us. And for all the prep that we did to feel comfortable when we got there, hearing things like the turf is an issue when you knew you were going to be playing on a soccer pitch, why weren't we prepared for that?
Totally.
I know,
but that feels like coaching. That was,
So it's unfortunate. The spark and the super fun stuff that we have been seeing was there was a tenseness that hasn't been there because they were definitely back on their heels. I think if there was another quarter to this game, who knows what would have happened, but there wasn't.
That's the thing that's kind of encouraging to me is that it was a game all the way up until the end, right? It's not like the Seahawks were out of it. I mean, really all they needed was a last stop and give Geno Smith a chance to be a hero and do a 2-minute drive and win this game. I mean, at any time in that game, if there was just one more defensive stop, right? Or maybe if Geno doesn't fumble in the red zone. But
that took points off the board.
That's right. Well, and in a 1-score game, that's a big deal. But we were in it. We were in it up to the and Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a talented team that's underperforming, but this is a team that still has a shot at the season. I don't count this team out. This is a good team. And every time you try to say Tom Brady's done, he just comes in and does a fuck you tour for a month. So we got to stop that too.
I've been saying that for months. People, I feel like for the last 10 years, people have been saying, I mean, the people that hate Brady, which is almost like most people now, want to say that oh, he's done, he's cooked, he's that. And I'm like,
no,
No.
No.
He's like the freaking mountain from like Game of Thrones. Like you could just never count
exactly.
that dude dead.
Just never count him out. I
or
know.
like Jason or Michael Myers or some shit like that.
Unfortunately, though, I thought that our defense was really going to be able to get after Brady, and that did not transpire. We could not get a pass rush going.
No, I mean,
all.
my prediction included like sacks on sacks on sacks, and no, that did not happen.
I know,
at all.
I know.
And because that wasn't happening, I was very early on in this game. I was like, oh.
That's exactly how I went. I was like, "Oh, this is not going to go well."
I think that fed into the turf issues too, because Seattle doesn't have a bunch of power rushers. They're all speed guys that come flying off the edge, or quick guys up the middle. Like it's just that you can't get your footing and your traction. You're not going to be able to explode like you want to, and so
yeah, I can tell you for sure we got there early enough to watch a bunch of stuff, people coming out, just warming up, just going through the motions. We saw people slipping and tripping, people trying to like carve a really tight turn and losing their footing early on in the game. And that's true for both teams. But yeah, Curtis, you make a great point about Tampa Bay just being kind of heavier and slower to begin with, and our team relying on that speed and those precision cuts, getting around the corner, and that wasn't going to happen on that field.
Well, you were there at that game, Matt. So what did you see? How was that experience? The stadium was rocking from first kickoff until the last second, like it was a soccer game. Like that crowd did not shut up. And that's really cool. How was it? Were there a lot of 12s? What was going on?
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. First of all, I'm lucky enough to have an awesome girlfriend who thinks these things sound really fun. She's probably a bigger Seahawks fan than I am. She's the one who suggested London in 2018, and as soon as we found out that an NFL team is going to Germany, we were both like, oh, let it be the Hawks, please let it be the Hawks. Because when we were in London in 2018, we met a bunch of German Hawks fans, and I didn't understand it then. And then they said, yep, it's going to be the Hawks in Munich. We said, yep, we're definitely going. Had the whole trip planned, but didn't have tickets yet because those tickets sold out in under 2 minutes. Everything
You're
just went up on the resale.
At the stadium tickets. Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, for Munich. Yeah, the tickets for the Munich game, the Alliance Stadium sold out in under 2 minutes, and then went on the resale market, and they were so overpriced. And I got to give a quick shout out to my coworkers too, because everybody knew I was going on vacation. They knew we were going for the game. Everybody thought it was crazy. The most common question I get from everyone, like casual fans to real fans, is why are they playing a game in Germany? And the answer is because it works. It works. There are hundreds of thousands of hardcore NFL fans over there, not just expats, Europeans who are into it. So my coworkers found out that we didn't have tickets to the game yet, and they pulled a surprise on me like 2 days before I'm leaving for vacation. They basically passed the hat, and a whole bunch of my team, people I've known for years and people I've never even met, bought us tickets to that game.
Wow.
Okay, where do you work, Matt, and are there any open positions?
Twilio, and they just sent out an email about a hiring freeze, but I feel like we could squeeze you in.
Listen, just I'll drop my resume, just get me in there.
I was absolutely floored, because a lot of these folks I haven't seen in 3 years because of the pandemic. Anyway, incredible seats, 50-yard line, 7 rows back. It was like me and a Gatorade cooler, and then Pete Carroll. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Yeah, Munich was rocking. The fans there are crazy. There's a hardcore German fan base there, but all over Europe. I mean, you're seeing people wearing the Hawks jerseys, speaking French, speaking Italian, speaking with British accents. They know the game. They love the game. There were definitely just curiosity, like onlookers too, but you had to pay a lot to get in the door. So, you had to be pretty curious. But the folks we ended up sitting next to at the game were very casual fans. They didn't know a lot about either team. He did have a Seahawks hat, which I appreciated. But they really just kind of wanted to see what all the fuss was about. But as compared to some of the folks behind me who were calling out defensive formations and calling out plays, and like they know their stuff. It's not just like me going to a soccer match. Frankly, they actually they actually know what they're looking at. So the stadium was full. They had screens set up outside the stadium for all the overflow. The bars back in town in Munich people were lining up at hours before game time to get into the bar to be able to watch the game later. And it was like a soccer match / karaoke bar, because every time it just it was the craziest thing. Every now and then on a little commercial break or whatever, they'd just start playing a song and 70,000 people would sing in perfect unison to John Denver or John Bon Jovi, or it's just like, it was like, I'm just looking around like, you guys know all the words to all of these songs. This is incredible. And then, then the game happened. Not a great game. I fully agree with you that if we'd had one more quarter, we would have pulled it off. The turf was a factor, and jet lag. It's obviously it's rough on both teams, but a 3-hour difference is a 3-hour difference.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay starting a game at 9:30 a.m. their body clock time versus us 6:30 a.m. body clock time. You could tell. I don't want to say, like, to me it looked like everybody was giving their all. I didn't see sleepy people on the sidelines or anything.
Right.
But they weren't 100% sharp, and the NFL is so tight. There's so much parity. You have to be 100% on every Sunday.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not making excuses or anything like that, but the Seahawks do have a very, very young team, right? Very inexperienced team, a team, many players haven't even been through it a full season. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a veteran team. Like, they've got some people who've been here forever. You got Tom Brady, who's been, half the time he's been in the league, he's been to the Super Bowl. He's seen it all, he's done it all, and nothing's going to phase him. You know what I mean?
And he's played many international games too, which
and
is
he's played the
different
international
atmosphere.
That's even Pete Carroll was saying this is kind of like, this has got a playoff atmosphere just because of the hype involved in it. So in that respect, I actually think like that's a cool experience for a young team, because hey, if we get into the playoffs, they've seen something like that. You know what I mean?
Good practice.
Yeah.
Good practice.
Yeah, that was my biggest thing, is that this is why I wasn't overly upset with the loss, was that, like, having planned a game like this before a bye week, which is going to give the coaches time to self-scout and, adjust, whatever they feel needs to be adjusted, and, maybe, make a few switches with personnel or whatever they do. I mean, the Carroll's teams always just kind of do this coming out of buys, is they tweak. And so I'm almost kind of glad that they lost, because I feel like, while there's a bunch of games around the corner that all feel very winnable, they're also like teams that are going to be playing for self-respect.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be
we got the Rams coming up, and we have the 49ers coming up. I mean, we have,
and the Rams
Chiefs
look terrible right now too, and it's just, if there's a year for Seattle to sweep the Rams, I think this might be the one. But the Rams are a scary team still, even without.
And there's the Seattle's kryptonite.
Yeah.
I mean, even when the Rams were bad, they were always good to take one to the Hawks.
Hey, Matt, I have a question for you. How large were those beers?
This was like the minimum. This is child sized right here. Yeah, they really were. They were giving out just giant steins of beer. But I'm not the world's biggest beer guy, so I'm probably not the best judge, but I would just say the reports of, German beer being the best in the world might be a little overstated. I had some pretty average beer while I was there.
I was just amazed, all these people with these giant steins just singing along. Sweet Caroline. I mean, it was just something to behold.
It was so fun. And when the stadium's out in the middle of nowhere, it's not like Pioneer Square where you can trickle out and maybe find a bar or something to eat afterwards. It's a junction of two highways, and it's half an hour back to town. So we were starving. Anyway, sorry. My point is that the game ends. The clock runs down, and the teams come out and hug, and Will Dissly exchanged jerseys with a giant on the Bucks who I didn't recognize. Anyway, I part of me, every sporting event I've ever been to, people are like making their way towards the door, like as the final seconds are clicking, trying to beat the traffic. I look around and it doesn't look like a soul has left their seat. Everyone's still on their feet, just kind of looking around, like taking it in, enjoying themselves. Nobody has moved. And they're setting up for like some on-field interviews afterwards. So they cue up the music and people start singing again. And it's turned into like this. I don't know how long they went, because we eventually did have to leave. We had a long way to get back to town. But when I left, the stadium was still a 70,000 person international karaoke event. They just kept playing songs and people kept singing them in perfect unison.
Yeah,
like it
on
was
the
whole thing.
On the broadcast here, they were set up on the field and they're talking, and they just kept commenting on the fact that, just so you all at home understand, they're all still here. Like they just kept mentioning the fact that everyone was still here and singing and having such a great time. And you could really feel that energy. You could feel it through the broadcasters, that this was a fun event, regardless of who you were rooting for.
I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
Well, the Hawks got a bye week, and then they get to play a game at home. I think most of our games now are going to be at home.
They are.
That's
We've
great.
got a favorable month around the corner. Yeah,
we do. And at 6-4, man, set up really, really well to go into the playoffs. Las Vegas Raiders are coming to town. The Raiders are not a good team this season. I think they're 2-5, 2-6.
Yeah, they're behind Denver.
2-6 or 2-7. They've only won 2 games. That's all I know. And they don't look good. They do not look good. I have been thinking about this game. It's at home. Derek Carr is no slouch, and they have Devontae Adams, but that defense is terrible. That defense is the worst defense in the league. That defense only has 10 sacks for the entire season. That is terrible. I think this game is going to be a blowout. I think it's just going to be a giant blowout. I am going to say this game is going to be 37-13.
Nice.
37-13.
37-13. I think this team is going to get after Derek Carr, and I think Geno Smith is going to be doing whatever the fuck he wants with this defense.
Geno, I will say this about the Bucks game too. Geno was fired up. Geno was what Curtis alluded to on the last podcast. Like this was, he wanted to win this game badly. It was personal to him. So I think he is going to have a bounce back game. I don't know anything about the Raiders, but since I'm already talking, I will just go ahead and say the only thing I know about the Raiders is that Patrick Alcorn loves them. And so for that reason alone, sorry, Patrick, I'm going to go 35-23. 23? I don't even know how you get to 23, but it's going to happen.
No, you can. I actually was thinking about going that high, because I was thinking like, well, they might let up, but I don't think so. I think this game is going to go a lot like that Chargers game. And they're just not going to be able to do anything. Yeah, Curtis, what do you think?
They're a funny team with the way they lose. They hemorrhage a bunch of points, but that offense figures out ways to score points. I guess except for that
Except
terrible
for
game
against
they
the
played
Saints.
against the Saints.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they've sort of been averaging like, just kind of looking at this real quickly here.
Around,
They're
20,
usually getting
25 points.
about 20 to 23 to 24 points. So I'm gonna say Seattle 31, Raiders 20, maybe. That there'll be I mean, they've got Devontae Adams, they've got Derek Carr, who's fine as a quarterback.
he's doing okay. I mean, he's playing well.
And and I think that, yeah, I don't know. There's just something I feel like they probably got a lot to play for in terms of self-respect and everything like that. Like I just feel like sometimes those losing teams in December can be
Kraken just won in overtime.
What's that?
Kraken won in overtime.
Yeah, so I'll just say that well, fuck it. I can't say that because I feel like Seattle probably learned their lesson a lot on defense, having gone against Brady and shit. I'm gonna say Seattle 31, Vegas 17. That's gonna be my score.
Dropping
Nice.
it down. All right.
Knocking it down 3 points.
Okay. I just read was checking on what kind of points they've been scoring and looked at their little news page, and the headline of the Mile High Report, which I think is pretty similar to like the Seagulls website, right? Labeled their upcoming game as the Depression Bowl, the Las Vegas Raiders at Denver Broncos.
Yeah, that feels right.
Let's not forget they've got another game to screw up. They might even win that one. I mean, they're playing the Broncos.
They beat him once.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. I do think that we take this game. I think the Raiders are bad and they're banged up.
They're poorly coached.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like I think we all feel with quarterbacks too, you got to give people a little time, but that doesn't mean that you're going to see amazing things right away. So right now they're poorly coached. So I think they're bad. But I will take the fact that they find a way to score, as you said, in their games. So I'm going to go. I wrote this down backwards. I'll have to fix your all's projections. It's like, damn, 37-13. That's the wrong way. Okay, I'm gonna go higher than everyone else. I'm gonna go 22 Raiders. Hawks. It's great. 33.
Nice.
And I'll fix everyone else's.
I
just feel like Seattle's probably going to score a lot of points at home on that Raider defense.
Yeah, and I think that team it's a proud team, and I think they just want to come back and show what they can do. Yeah.
Real quick before we move entirely on from the Munich game, Curtis has had a challenging week or so. Those of you who know and love him know what I'm talking about. So I did bring back a very special souvenir for him from the Munich game.
What is this?
You can really
a new truck.
Really. I wish it was a new truck, buddy. I'm sorry, but in the absence of that, I present you the greatest, the greatest swag of all time.
For those of you listening to the pod and you can't see this on YouTube, it's a Seahawks lederhosen.
Shit,
Seahawks lederhosen, baby.
This is I feel like my life has gone full circle now.
What's he get a picture of you as a
Seahawks.
child in a lederhosen and then your Seahawks?
That's
Well,
that's
thank you. I
fantastic.
appreciate that.
That is
I will,
fantastic.
I will definitely wear it around the house.
It's I'm not gonna lie to you, I did try them on. I mean, I had to, but I didn't go commando and another man's lederhosen. But I just had to put it on, and I was just like, I don't understand. What else do I wear with this? Like, it doesn't go with anything else I have, and I know I'm not supposed to be naked in it. So what else do people wear with these?
That's
I think
pretty
you gotta
great.
go commando, right?
Yeah,
I went up to
yeah.
the I went up to the NFL Pro Shop thing there at in Munich, and you know, they had the usual scarves and hats and some jerseys, combo jerseys and stuff, and everything was, you know, pretty overpriced. And I'm looking around, I'm like, I mean, I don't really. Well, that'd be no, I don't really need anything. And on my way past the booth, the very last thing was hanging like on the side of the booth, so it was the last thing everyone saw as they were going by. I was like, are those lederhosen? You should have those out front. Are you kidding me? Everyone here wants that. Those should be hanging on the front of the booth. Give me 2 of those right now.
I am going to request that the Seahawks Pro Shop over here get some lederhosen in. I need some of that. They should have lederhosen with like the player numbers on them. You know? Yeah. That's great. Moving on, got some Mariners news. Number one, Julio Rodriguez gets the AL Rookie of the Year. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, but that's still really, really cool, and it couldn't have happened to a better player. Scott Service came short on Manager of the Year, but just to be in that conversation is pretty dang good. And when the Mariners go all the way next season, that's when he can win it. That team is already making some moves. Just traded for Teoscar Hernandez from the Blue Jays, who was a big time bomber to add to the outfield. You know, his batting average is pretty good, but his exit velocity is why they brought him in. He can just, like, when he hits it, it goes for miles, and he hits these really strong, nice line drives. He's exactly the kind of middle of the lineup bat that team needs, and I'm really, really excited about it. Hernandez won the Silver Slugger in 2021. He had a down year for him last year, but by no means was it a bad year. It was still a good year. So the Mariners continue to add to that outfield. I don't know what I mean. Obviously Winker is going to be gone, but man, they're going to have to figure something out because that outfield is stacked, and I think they might even add a little bit more. And then Kyle Lewis was just traded, and I can't even Cooper, some no-name player. It was just like a straight up one-on-one trade. Not terribly surprising. Kyle Lewis is, won Rookie of the Year a few years ago, but has underperformed since then, has been hurt a lot, and is just kind of the player who needs a change of scenery. But the Jerry Dipoto is, he's going to be making some moves. They've still got Marco on the block, Flexen on the block, Winker on the block. You might even see Kellenic on the block. I don't know. I don't think they're done with Kellenic, but
you're gonna kind of try and hang on to Kellenic and see if
I mean, personally, I think so. I don't think Kellenic is a bust. He's still super young and he's shown so much promise, especially as a defensive player. And when he's in the minor leagues, he can hit. Like, he's a really, really good player who just has to figure it out in the major leagues. And when he does, he's going to be real good. But I see him, I think like second base is probably an upgrade that they're going to be looking at, but they're definitely going to be looking for another bat. But yeah, Mariners, go M's. really excited about this team. This is, you always know you want to trade, by the way, when the other team's fans are freaking out on social media. So, and the Blue Jays fans were losing their goddamn mind. So that was good. Yeah.
I would just like to say Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos.
Oh,
And how
talk
many
about a
Seahawks
win.
fans were flipping out when that trade happened.
There were also a lot of fans who were, there
was some people that were happy to see that happen. Seattle perspective for sure, but
I don't know if you saw, but Russell Wilson in his presser today came out just with it to his presser with his wrist. Yeah.
I saw somebody on Twitter.
Yeah, like come on, Russ.
Comment about it and stuff. But I watched not to detract too much. I watched his press conference just because sometimes I just gotta smell that old milk container and I watched it after the loss on Sunday and against whoever they played. Was it like Tennessee or something? But it was like I'm honestly starting to sort of feel sorry for the dude, but
yeah, I know.
I need that team to lose out for that draft pick. I mean, there's this Jalen Carter defensive tackle guy from Georgia right now that I'm just freaking salivating for. And I know he's not getting out of the top 5 of that draft next year. And I just want him in Seattle. So please, Russ, just continue to suck terribly this year.
If the season ended today, it would be a number 7 draft pick.
I need a top 3.
Yeah, exactly. Just get into that top 5.
You can suck harder. We believe in you.
Yeah.
So we're all rooting for the Raiders on Sunday.
I got to,
yeah.
It's a weird, horrible sort of feeling to Raiders for being
sorry,
old,
Patrick.
But yeah, I've completely destroyed our Mariner discussion talking about Russell Wilson.
Well, I'm just happy to see that Julio got what he deserved.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
all I
really
would like to
exciting.
say about Julio as a very, very casual Mariners fan is that, it's an energy, having only gone to a few games this year. One of them, I was out in center field, very close to him, and it just has a whole different energy. And to me, it reminded me of Joey Cora and Ken Griffey Jr., where it's like that you just a casual fan looking around. I keep getting drawn back to this guy. This guy's having the time of his life.
Yeah.
This guy is a kid in a candy store, and his energy is infectious. And whenever he can, he's turning around and interacting with the fans, and then going back to his job. And it changes the game for casual fans like me. It's like, well, now I just want this guy to win everything. This guy's fantastic.
It does. I mean, he is. He's the new king of Seattle sports, right? I mean, he's the new superstar. That's what a superstar does. They just take over. They have that charisma, that just draws you to him. Sue Bird, I thought had the same thing with the Storm. You just couldn't help but see her on the court. She was just such a great ambassador of the team and of the city, and embraced the spotlight, like Julio does. So yeah, it's really exciting, and especially for the city of Seattle, to have a superstar of that caliber. And I think Seattle is they've got an embarrassment of riches right now with super talented young players. Matty Beniers on the Kraken, who is, kind of blown up in his rookie season. And all the young players on the Seahawks, Ken Walker and Tariq Woolen, who's starting to, his personality is starting to show. He's starting to chirp out there, which I like. He was John at like Julio Jones and stuff like that in Tampa, and like pointing at people. And there was one where when he lined up with Tom Brady, when he got that interception on Tom Brady, he lined up and he was like, man, he was like doing one of those, like when Tom Brady was lined up on the sideline, he was like, man, like you're nothing, man. And I love that. I mean, I love that stuff. So yeah, really fun stuff. Also we got the XFL team starting up, the Seattle Sea Dragons. Millie, you're a Sea Dragons fan.
I am indeed a Sea Dragons fan. I have to get used to
A
saying
season ticket holder.
I have to get used to saying Seattle Sea Dragons. It's a little redundant. I'm still not entirely sure. I think they had to, I don't know if they had to change the name a little bit from the previous iteration for our 12s of listeners who are not huge XFL fans. There is this thing called the XFL that has just started up for the third time. Seattle once again does have a team. We had a team back in 2020 when it was restarted last, called the Seattle Dragons. And my husband and I got season tickets, and for the few home games that happened before everything was shut down for COVID, we got to go to those games and had just a fantastic time. The XFL is a little different than the NFL. The rules are just a little more fun. You get to do some stuff that you don't get to do in the NFL. But it's not, was it the XFL that where it was like super violent? Like, it's not that. It's real football with a few tweaks. And it's also, I'm going to say straight up, it is the cheapest way to see a really great football game. Yeah. Especially here in Seattle. We're over in section 133, row P, if anybody wants to join the Hubs and I for some games. The season is 10 games. So it's 5 home games. And it's at Lumen Field. And you can get tickets for $20. Yeah. So, especially if you want to take your family, like your whole family, to go to a big sporting event that's a football game, I think the XFL is a great option. I will also my one pet peeve is the logo that they've chosen. They pretty much took the Dragons logo from 2020 and they made them the Sea Dragons, which basically looks like a seahorse spewing fire, which of course makes it an S. And I figured out like that's the only reason they made it that seahorse shape, because if you look at the logos of the other teams, they're so badass. Like, they're really cool. I urge you to look them up, but they all create a letter. So I think that's why they made it a seahorse. It's
at that point, just make it a Trogdor. Do you know Trogdor?
Right, you can actually just draw
the beefy arm.
Yeah, that's going around right now. There's a lot of that. For those of you watching, this is the original logo from 2020. It was cool. That
one's cool. Yeah.
And now it's a little more seahorsey.
I'm seeing I'm such an NFL dork. I'm seeing like a lot of recognizable NFL names on the.
Well, that's what I haven't brought up to you all is that the coach is Haslett, who
Jim Haslett, who used to coach the Saints, right?
Right, coach Saints, and Jim Zorn is the offensive coordinator.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the way they draft is really interesting. So the first thing they do is they get their quarterbacks in like a pre-draft before the actual draft happens.
Interesting.
And the 2 quarterbacks we took are both NFL experienced quarterbacks. I'm not that familiar with them, but
their names. I'm trying to look at
DiNucci, who was on the Cowboys, and Stephen Montez, who played for Colorado.
Oh yeah, he was he was thought to have been like somebody who was potentially gonna be a high round pick who never materialized.
He was on the Washington football team in 2020.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of deal? Is the NFL using the XFL as like a developmental league?
There's a window for that. Here's the thing is I think the last go around they tried to say that they weren't going to be a developmental league, but the problem with that is, players, The guy who we're going to see in a few weeks playing for Carolina, PJ Walker, was
we saw him play here.
Yeah, he was like a star in the XFL the last time around, and he got a kick. So I think this time around they're making it more like, yeah, like, you know, there's opportunities, like they will let them out of their contracts to go, you know,
make real money.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, they just season tickets went on sale today. It's 5 games. It's a lot of fun.
And
If we want to keep it here, we got to support it. So I urge you to at least catch a game if you even enjoy football a little bit.
Yeah. And is it a summer league? Is that what it is?
Oh, it's a freezing cold league.
Nice.
It's like February, March, April.
Yikes. Bring your parkas and rain jackets and umbrellas. Yeah.
Yep.
That's fun though. I mean, I love football in inclement weather.
Yeah. Come see a game.
Well, that's real fun. Yeah, that's nice. Just touch on the Kraken a bit. They won. They're doing well. The Kraken are making a playoff push, and they're looking like they're putting it together. That Kraken is looking real nice. You know, this game they didn't have to go into OT. They could have closed it out. They just got to figure out how to close those games out. But they're not getting killed like they were last season, and they're winning some games, and they're looking good doing it. It was nice to see in this one that last OT goal. They've been kind of that's been an Achilles heel for them. They haven't usually been that great in OT, so it's nice to see them start getting some points there. So go Kraken! I'm really having fun this season. You want some dork out a bit, dork out some.
Yeah.
Do some dorking. What are we dorking out about? Curtis, what are you dorking about? Did you finish Mando or
Andor?
Yeah. No spoilers. I'm like 3 episodes behind now.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was well, you know, I was a few weeks back, I was kind of trashing about how boring I was finding it. But then
I do remember that vividly.
Picked up. So it's like I'm loving it again. It's you know, it's Star Wars for people who don't like lightsabers and shit. But what I really wanted to bring up is last Friday, friend of mine, a good friend who his son is from my son's preschool, and they've become buddies. We did sort of a play date thing where I went over to his place. The kids started playing with the other kid's mom and went out to the park. And he and I watched the Western, fuck is his name? The Harder They Fall on Netflix. Did anybody see this film? It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
movie.
I think, didn't we talk about this last year?
You might have. I might have spaced it out because, you know, I don't watch the Netflix cheapskate that I am, you know, but I saw this movie, and it's a great Western, and it's, you know, it's an all Black cast primarily, and they are all historically real people, but this is a fictitious storyline. Like these events never happened, but they all sort of represent real Wild West African Americans who were like gunslingers and you know, robbers and that sort of, and marshals and all this sort of stuff. In fact, there was one character in it played by God, what's the name of the actor? Leroy Delroy Mondo. Who's the guy who was in Get Shorty and is African American?
Delroy Lindo,
right? So he played a character that was an actual U.S. Marshal in Texas, ex-slave, who had the highest amount of captured criminals at the time by like a vast majority of them, brought him back alive and sort of stuff like that. And his historical character was the basis for the Lone Ranger.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of
Wow.
historical significance to the sort of fan fiction that this film kind of is. And it's like it's a great combination of like almost like, you know, Sergio Leone's spaghetti western, and also sort of like the classic, you know, John Ford movies and the High Noon type stuff, but they also blend in like this amazing sort of like, you know, just black hip hop, reggae sort of sounds. And the actors, you know, Jonathan Marshall's in it, Idris Elba's in it, the actress that was in the second Deadpool is in it,
Zazie Beetz.
yeah. And
I love her.
yeah, and there's a few, there's a trans character that shows up in it, and this actress is stunning, who plays the part. Also a historical real character. Yeah, I highly recommend it. And it's got, and at the end, it's got like, yeah, the ending's terrific. It's just can't speak enough about it. It's like one of those films that I watched and I was just like, holy shit, I can't believe it's taken me this long to watch this. Oh yeah, I'm a cheapskate who doesn't pay for Netflix. So of course I wouldn't watch this film. But now, like, I would watch this film like repeatedly. Like this film deserves like repeat viewings.
I'm a sucker for westerns.
Yeah.
I remember it coming out because I remember the hype around it, and it was one of those movies that I meant to see, and it just didn't happen. So the fact that it's on Netflix, I'm in. Harder they fall.
You should. I remember Alana and I dorked out about this one.
Yeah.
A while back.
That's
I'm really glad you got to
awesome.
see it, Curtis.
Yeah, well, you know, it was all, you know, my buddy Brian's urging that, you know, we hang out and watch this sort of thing together. And he hit it on the nail. Like, it was just like, yeah, it's just, I like it. I like getting pulled out of my lair, trying new shit.
Yeah. I started a new book. That's what I've been dorking out about. I like fantasy. I've been reading this new fantasy series that I'm deeply in love with. And it's just this long epic 16-book series by a local writer, actually. And she started writing this series in the 90s and just concluded it a few years ago. I just started it. And it's written in like a series of trilogies. And so the first trilogy was the Farseer trilogy, which is what I read. And the second trilogy takes place in like a totally different section of this world with different characters, which I was a little disappointed. I was like, oh, I didn't know the second trilogy wasn't going to have like the same characters, because I really love those characters. And as soon as I started it, I fell in love with all these characters. And this one is like a swashbuckling pirate adventure, and I'm fucking into it. So the last trilogy was kind of like this medieval Game of Thrones kind of thing, and this one's like this swashbuckling pirate adventure, and it's really fun. I'm into it. So that's what I've been dorking out about.
What's it called, and who was the writer?
It is Robin Hobb is the writer. This trilogy, so the overall series is Realm of the Elderlings. And this trilogy is called the Liveship Traders. And the first book, which is the one I'm reading, is called Ship of Magic. And it's really fun. And I encourage you. She is a fantastic writer. It's a crime that she is not as famous as she is. And I read fantasy, and I didn't really know that much about her. She should have like this series should be an HBO show. The way she can write people and psychology and trauma is better than anything I've read before. It's really, in fact, you know, just to like, as an example, in this series, there is a character who's a captain of a pirate ship, and he's a rogue and a scoundrel. And he has ambitions, and you start, he's kind of a dick, but in kind of an entertaining way. And he has these ambitions of kind of becoming king of the pirates, right? And so, and he's kind of a master manipulator. He really lays out his plans, and he's high on himself. He's just got good news from an oracle that his plans are gonna, pay out. And so he really thinks he's going to become like what he's always wanted to be. And he's high on his confidence, and he's talking to his first mate, and he's kind of like, what if, somebody were to be the leader of these guys? And he's like talking, and his first mate at the end of the day comes up to him, and he's like, we're in this because we don't want leaders, we follow captains, but, and he's doing this whole thing. And the character, like, the blood goes out of his face, and he leaves in a huff, and he's like super petty about it. And the entire chapter, he goes further and further and further into like this anger and bitterness and depression. And it was so real that I saw myself in it. Like, I've had that day, you know what I mean? Where you're on top and somebody reacts against it, and it just goes further. You just, the voices in your head just keep telling you further and further and further. And you just get more angry, more bitter, more depressed. And I just thought it was fascinating because you don't see that in books and TV and that kind of like real life truth and honesty. And I thought it was really, really fascinating. So if you like fantasy, check those books out. I really like them. Millie, what are you dorking out about?
Well, it's funny because, last week I was like, I'm not dorking out over anything but fantasy football. And nothing's happening. In that time, I've watched an entire series, which tells you it was definitely 100% my kind of thing. It is called The Bastard Son and the Devil Himself.
I've never heard of that.
I hadn't either. I just decided on a whim, like, all right, I'll just try this one. And it's on Netflix. And it totally scratched my supernatural itch that I've had. The sort of idea behind this one is that there are clans of witches who exist in, kind of in our world. They don't like, they're not real out about it, but there are witches, and they
it's the Democratic Party.
they
yeah.
The story centers around he's 16 for the main part of the story, but basically, the birth of this child who is the bastard son of this super evil witch who is responsible for this massacre. And so he's, raised by his grandmother along with his half sister. And when you become 17 is when you get your powers. There's a ceremony, and you truly get your power. Prior to that, you might be able to do things, but you're not like a full witch. And there's always been concern over what he would become when he comes into his powers. And so, every month this woman comes and asks him the same questions over and over again. Do you feel violent urges towards other witches? Can you hear my heartbeat? Like, they're called blood witches. So he's from this line of blood witches, and the witches that he is living with are called Fairborns. And anyway, I don't want to get too into the weeds, but basically he's coming into his own and figuring out who he is at the same time that, you start to question exactly who is good and who is bad, and what does that mean? It's just got a lot going for it. None of these are actors. I actually just looked through IMDb to see if, should I recognize them from anything? And no, they've had maybe bit parts. They're mostly Brits. And it does take place, a lot of it in England, the UK. it's just really, I really dug it, and I just blew through it in a week. So if you like your sort of Harry Potter witchy stories with a grown-up edge and some nice sexy bits, I definitely recommend The Bastard Son and the Devil himself.
That's a great title.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Matt, are you dorking out about anything?
Dorking out on a podcast by Rachel Maddow called Ultra.
Oh.
It is about it's true history, part about World War II that I never heard about, with the far right here in the U.S. Nazi sympathizers, people who thought Hitler was on the right track. Not just like, not weird fringe groups either, like, people with allies in Congress, people using Congress to spread propaganda. These are parts of U.S. history I didn't get from
There was
my
a senator
remedial
from
high
the
school
state of
education.
Washington who was, I think, who was a Nazi sympathizer and unknown.
Hitler had an extremely effective propaganda campaign going on over here. But the weird part about listening to this podcast is just all of the language. I keep having to remind myself she's not talking about right now, because it's the, America First Party and the Patriot Front and the people who really, really believe that they are the true Americans. They are the real Americans. And what they really want is fascism. They want a leader. They want a strong man like Hitler to come in and tell everybody what to do and punish their enemies. And it's a fascinating series and only mildly disturbing.
Yeah, good. Well, we're living through that right now too. It seems like. Yeah. What's old is new again. All right. Hey, that was a lot of fun. So if you're listening to this podcast, we're taking next week off. We always with Seahawks get a bye week. This Dorks on Sports, we get a bye week. So we'll be back 2 weeks from now. If you like this podcast, hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to it. That's a plus or a check mark or subscribe or whatever that is. We're on Spotify and Apple and all that good stuff. We're also on YouTube. If you want to see all the pretty faces, we have the video cast there. And you should subscribe there too. And shout us out in the comments. And if you can't find us on your podcast of choice, just let us know and we'll get on there. It's easy, I promise. You should check out Curtis's blog, 12life.com. It's always got some great stuff in there, especially during the Seahawks season. Once again, my name is Daniel. For Curtis, Millie, Matt, the rest of the 12s, saying goodbye and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Gosh.